Welcome to another edition of You're Kind of a Big Deal. Today, my guest, who really is a big deal, is Leslie Cirinesi, and she is a woman of many talents. And today we're going to talk about her work with animals. She is the official bear whisperer. I call you the bear whisperer, I'm so sorry. What's your official title?
I am the official animal communicator for the Montana Grizzly Encounter.
Okay, which is in Montana.
Bozeman, Montana.
Very cool. And I met you, amazingly enough. The soundtrack that's playing in the background is from the song Colors of the Wind. And I was reading through the words as I was playing. And part of the words, have you ever heard the wolf cry to the blue corn moon or asked the grinning bobcat why he grinned? And you get to ask the bears why they do all kinds of things.
I do. I get to talk to the bears.
You do.
And they talk back.
And they talk back, like talk to the animals with Dr. Dolittle.
Very true.
Yes. I met you at a Native American event, which, especially when I picked Colors of the Wind to play, I thought, how appropriate this is. And I was so impressed with the gentleness of your spirit.
Oh, thank you.
And so it doesn't surprise me that the bears would love to talk to you because you have such a gentle way of speaking. I don't know how you do this, so you get to tell all of us how you do this. I called it deep listening. So you get to tell us how you started this, and are you actually related to Dr. Dolittle?
That would be interesting to find out.
Yes, it would be.
Actually,
I want to see a push me pull you, by the way.
Oh, they are very rare.
I know they are.
Actually, it didn't start out as just jumping in and being an animal communicator. It started off where I was giving Reiki. I'm a Reiki master and a teacher.
For everybody who doesn't remember or doesn't know, Reiki is a form of
energy healing.
Okay.
So it helps with emotional healing, physical healing. And what I had found through my work with Reiki is it works really well with animals. And what it seems to really work well with is animals who have been abused or abandoned or orphaned or rescued. And they carry emotional baggage just like people do. And through working with different animals, of course it started with dogs and cats, etc., horses, I started to realize that it seemed like the greater their sense of smell, the more sensitive they were to the energy.
Interesting. Their sense of smell?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It seemed to happen that way. So I started to do a little bit of experimentation because what I found is that grizzly bears' sense of smell is 7 times greater than a bloodhound, or 350 times greater than our sense of smell.
Wow. 350 times?
Yes. So they
Wow.
can smell, a polar bear could smell a seal under the ice 2 miles away, no problem. A grizzly bear could smell a blueberry 2 miles away if the wind is blowing the right way.
Oh my goodness. See, we have no sense of how that feels. That's amazing.
Yeah. So I decided that...
Oh, look, a bee came to visit. Okay.
They like the energy.
Oh, yes, I bet they do.
So what I found is, what I thought is, since their sense of smell is so great, I wonder if their sensitivity to the energy would be that good. And of course my thought was, why would a grizzly bear need my help? Why would they have any emotional baggage? And then I heard about this grizzly bear sanctuary in Bozeman, Montana that has rescued grizzly bears. They have 5 grizzly bears there. And they've all been abused, abandoned, orphaned, or for whatever reason they've come to live there.
Oh,
and
no, can I stop you just for a second?
Mm-hmm.
How does a grizzly bear who everyone's just scared, afraid of, how does a bear, this has to be a sad story, how does a bear get abused?
Sometimes, sometimes people think they're doing the right thing.
Okay.
And, it turns out not to be so good for the animals. So, for example, one of the bears there who was 27, she was bought as a cub from an exotic pet auction.
Okay.
And the man had the idea that he was going to put her into a circus, but he lost his funding or his trainer, and so he put her actually and her twin sister both into a cage that was 4 by 6 by 4 and put them out in the backyard in Texas in the heat and left them there for 15 years.
Oh my gosh.
So they didn't come out. They were both in there together, so 2 full-size grizzly bears after 15 years into this one small cage. After 15 years, he took one of the grizzly bears out and put them into sort of like a U-Haul type trailer with no windows and left one of them in the cage. And so after 18 years of living that kind of lifestyle, then the state of Texas finally intervened, and this Montana Grizzly Encounter went to Texas, rescued them, and brought them back.
Oh my goodness.
So these people in Texas probably thought that they were loving and taking, good care of these grizzly bears, but from my perspective, it wasn't the right thing for the bear,
Right.
for both of the bears. So that to me is a kind of abuse.
Oh, I had no idea. I had no idea.
Yeah, and some of the other bears have, like Brutus, for example.
Brutus is hanging out with us today.
Yes, here's Brutus. He's a movie star, and he was on a TV show.
Which show is he in?
It's America the Wild. It's
Okay.
on Nat Geo Wild. He stars with his human father, Casey Anderson.
Okay.
And Brutus was born in a wildlife park, and they didn't have room for him, so they were just going to euthanize him.
Oh.
So that's how Brutus was rescued.
Okay.
One of the other bears there, Lucy, was actually born in the wild in Alaska, but at the age of about 4 or 5 months, she was orphaned, and she was going to starve to death. So they rescued her from Angoon, Alaska, and went up there and got her and brought her back. So some of them aren't that they've been, physically abused, but
They needed a home. They're like orphan bears.
They are, exactly.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
they all have different stories.
So the first time you got to meet the bears, you got to tell us. Okay, I'm going to go
Yes.
meet a bear today.
Yeah. So I had contacted the Grizzly Encounter to talk to them about giving the bears Reiki
Okay.
to help with the emotional baggage, because I thought these grizzly bears actually might.
Yes.
And when I got there, they wanted me to talk to the youngest bear, Lucy, the one that had been orphaned in Alaska. And they asked me to come back into the private area where the bears are and work with Lucy. Well, what I didn't realize is that the director that runs the encounter assumed that I was an animal communicator.
Okay.
So she had a list of questions that she wanted me to ask them and get answers about things that had been, on her mind.
And for you, this was a sort of an experiment in.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I had taken an animal communication class, and I had tried it on my dogs, and it didn't seem to work well because they still didn't listen to me.
Yeah, but it's like parents. They
Yeah.
listen way better to other people.
Exactly. So I was very honest with her, and I told her that I wasn't an expert in it, but that I would give it a try, and that I would just be honest with, if I felt it was working or not.
Okay.
But what happened was surprising to me most of all. And that is that when I started talking to Lucy and giving her Reiki, I was getting these pictures in my head of things that I shouldn't know. And the first thing that she told me was that she had hurt her nail, that she had really twisted it and cracked it. And that even for her, who has a high tolerance of pain, that it was very painful. And so the director, Amy, told Lucy to give her paw, and she looked at it, and there was a very huge crack on that exact nail. And there's no way I would have known that.
You have, right.
So
Wow.
it just kept going to where I was getting all of these impressions. And so then she had, Amy had some questions that she wanted to get the answers to, and I gave it a shot and gave that information, and actually came back very accurate, and Amy validated all of the things that I was getting. So it was very interesting. And so the way it really works is it's more like a telepathy.
Okay.
I don't talk out loud to the bears. I mean, I do if I'm just walking by and saying hello or whatever, but when I'm actually having a conversation, it's all,
Nonverbal.
Nonverbal, thank you. And usually what I do is I get more pictures than anything. but then also they'll give me some pictures with some knowing behind it. Like with the crack on her nail, all I could see was the crack on her nail, and all the information of how it happened came with it. So it was very odd to me. I wasn't really sure what to do with all of that. But next I went and I met Brutus, who is...
Is Brutus the teenager?
He is. He's 11 now. He was 10 at the time.
Okay.
And
in people years, how does a bear do?
He would be probably like a teenager, 18, 19.
Okay.
So, yeah, it was very interesting. Brutus was very chatty because he's always been around people all of his life. He was, raised since he was 2 weeks old, and they bottle fed him, and he just started chatting and telling me all kinds of things and giving me these pictures, and it was just amazing. I wasn't really sure if I just had these random thoughts in my head or if it really was the bear, but the way that I really worked through it was that Amy, the director, validated everything that he was saying.
Because this was your first visit, you'd never met this bear before, and you knew things about him that there would be no way, since this was your first experience there.
Absolutely.
That's amazing.
So that time...
You really are a big deal, especially to Brutus and Lucy.
Well, they're a big
and to
deal
all of
me.
us.
So it was, it was very interesting. He's 7'1", he's 900 pounds. I thought it would be a little bit intimidating. It wasn't at all, because he's kind of a goofball. And
so he has a personality?
Definitely. They have emotions and personalities just like we do. They laugh, they smile, they cry, they pout. I've seen it.
Well, they do that in Disney movies, but we all thought that was fake, but they really do.
They really do.
That's
they absolutely do. In fact,
amazing.
there's a book called Smiling Bears.
Smiling Bears?
Yep, it's by Elsa Poulsen, and she actually used to work at the Detroit Zoo here.
Oh, wow.
She's really well known in the bear community, and she wrote a book about bears
Smiling
really
bears.
do smile.
Oh.
And I, like I said, they pout. I've seen it. I accidentally caused it.
You
had
have
to go.
tell us the story.
Had to
how
go
you
to
caused a bear to pout.
Well,
it's not like causing a husband to pout.
no.
But they don't weigh 900 pounds.
That's true. Well, I was having a chat with Brutus, and I told him that I had gotten a new camera. I was very excited. I was waiting for him to go outside so I could take a bunch of pictures of him with my new camera. And he loves to have his picture taken. He's quite the ham.
I see.
And so it turns out that when it came his time to go outside, I actually got called to communicate with a couple of the other bears.
Okay.
And by the time I got done with that, he actually was coming back inside, and I didn't get to take the pictures. And my mistake was I didn't go and explain it to Brutus.
Okay.
I was still thinking that he wouldn't really notice the difference. And so the next day when he went outside and I had my new camera, he was pouting and he wouldn't look at me. He kept turning away. And so I had to tell him how sorry I was. And I did. I apologized that I didn't come back and explain to him that I had run out of time and that I was planning on coming back the next day. And luckily, after a little while, he forgave me and he turned around and came back down the hill. And we had a very nice photo session, and he likes to have his picture taken.
That's amazing. You know what, I have to tell you, while you were telling me this, I have been to the zoo quite a few times, and the gorilla exhibit is amazing. Mm-hmm. But this has to be at least between 5 and 10 years ago. There was a gorilla there, and he was so unhappy. I could feel it. Mm-hmm. And I thought, is this my imagination? This gorilla looks like he's really having a rough time and he doesn't want to pose. And he was actually I thought, how much like a human this is. He had his arms crossed. He probably was.
Oh, absolutely.
I wasn't able to, I could see his body language. Wow.
Yep. So, they actually, have personalities definitely all of their own. Lucy is, the younger bear, and she's now getting to be quite a photo hound too. She likes to have her photos taken, and the more cameras that come out and the longer the lenses, the more they pose, and it's really quite interesting that they enjoy that.
Now you talk back to them, or they understand what you're saying also. Mm-hmm. Now is that done telepathically also?
Yes. Yep, absolutely.
Wow. You did tell me a story once about somebody having a teenage, a temper tantrum over some candy, or you have to tell that.
Yes. So actually, it was Brutus.
It was Brutus again.
It was Brutus. He was not happy. He was not really behaving that day. He was kind of being a little mischievous, and he was digging up some rocks, which we didn't want him to do because we didn't want him to get hurt. And so I went and I talked to him and I said, Brutus, you know, this is dangerous. We don't want you to do that. And he was very pouty and he said, you told me that you would get me some candy. And I said, which was true, but I didn't realize that he expected me to run out that moment and get the candy and bring it back to him.
Oh, well, this is the power of now. The bear has it.
Yes, so I had to explain to him that just because he has his own personal animal communicator does not mean that he gets things right as he asks. I'm not his servant. I'm just his interpreter.
Oh, that's, I would imagine. Somehow, do they tell you how happy you are that they can talk to you?
Yes, actually, when I first started talking to him and he was just chattering away, I said, slow down, and he said, I've been waiting. You know, so there had been things that, you know, he had been trying to communicate for a long time, and apparently, you know, people weren't getting it. And I get that a lot even with animals, you know, that I work with other people with dogs and cats. You know, a lot of times they'll say, I've been trying to tell them this and they're just not listening. So animals really do try to communicate with us all the time.
Wow.
And sometimes we just don't pick it up.
Now give us an example. We'll go back to the bears in a minute. I know you communicate with people's animals. Give us an example. Let's say cats are known to be, you know, rather standoffish, but tell us about a cat that you've chatted with.
Actually, there's a funny story where I did work with a cat in Colorado, and the nice part about being an animal communicator is that I don't have to be face-to-face with the animal. I actually can just look at a picture and do it long distance.
Oh, you can? Okay, that's fascinating also.
And
but
as well,
telepathy works without any distance.
Luckily, and there's no long-distance charges. That's even
You're
better.
Right.
But the interesting part is I could just look at a picture, even if it's just on a smartphone or something, and I can connect with the animal. And even actually after they've passed over into spirit, I can still connect with them because energy lives on.
Okay.
And so I was working with a cat in Colorado, and I had finished the session. At the end of the session, I said, is there anything that you want me to tell your owner, not your owner, your family?
Yeah, your family.
Your mother. And the cat said to me, tell her I want the applesauce. And I thought, excuse me? I'm not sure I got that.
I don't think cats eat applesauce, do they?
Yeah, that's what I thought. I said, so I asked again. I said, I'm sorry I didn't get that. Can you tell me again? And the answer I got was, I want the applesauce. So I just accepted it as it was, and I went back to the owner and I said, okay, the last thing that they told me was that they want the applesauce. They want the applesauce. And she laughed and she said, I'll tell you, I'm moving in 10 days. She said, I refuse to move any food. So I will tell you exactly what I have in my cupboard right now. She said, I have a bag of Hungry Jack instant mashed potato flakes. I have a can of stewed tomatoes, and I have a jar of applesauce. And that is it. And so she said, that makes perfect sense to me that he was saying he wants, and she said, and I don't have cat food, but what he doesn't know is that after this phone call, I'm going to go get some cat food. So he thought that there was no other food in the house, and if that were his three choices,
he would take that.
He
Yeah, the
wanted
flakes would kind of be really dry. Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
So it's really interesting the things that they tell me. You know, people expect them to say, I like to lick my paws or things like that, but actually they have some very profound things to say, and sometimes they're just goofy. You know, like Brutus told me that the reason that he likes to eat grapes is he likes to put them on the roof of his mouth and pop them. He likes them when they burst. He thinks that's hilarious.
Just like a kid.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
And when he would speak, I hear him in my voice, which a lot of people wonder, you know, what do they sound like? And it is my voice, but sometimes I'll get their personality in the voice. I'll get, you know, different tones. I'll get different cadence. And so when he was talking to me, he said, you know what? You know what? And I said, what? And he said, I like grapes. You know why? You know why? I said, I have no idea why. And he said, it's funny when they go, when they pop. So
wow.
So it was like talking to a young boy. It was honestly, I have to say it's one of the highlights of my life, having that happen. I talked to those bears. I talked to 3 of them that day for about 3.5 hours. And when I came out, my husband was waiting, my husband Andy, and I said to him, I just talked to some grizzly bears. I just talked to 3 grizzly bears. And he said, yeah. I said, no, I had a conversation with 3 grizzly bears. So no one was more surprised about it than me. Actually, he wasn't surprised at all. He always knew that I had it in me. I think it was just me not really accepting it.
Wow.
That it wasn't just my imagination.
You know, interestingly, we're sitting right here and there's a tree behind us. There's been birds that have been flocking to this tree, so they must know your energy. I'm serious. I've been watching them fly over your head behind you. Like, this is amazing.
You know, it's funny, my girlfriend Nancy, we went to the zoo in Toledo and walked around, and she said, you know, everywhere we went, all of the animals would come right up to the front. When she said, if anyone ever goes to the zoo, go with Leslie.
Oh, I'm scheduling a trip to the zoo. We'll go see that gorilla and have a conversation with him.
There you go.
That would be wonderful. The polar bears at the zoo, have you been able to communicate with them?
Yes. As you know, I volunteer at the Detroit Zoo.
Yes, you do.
I'm a docent, which means that I lead tours and I'm the subject matter expert. I get to choose wherever I want to work, whichever station, and of course I always choose the bears. And I go between the grizzly bears, the black bears, the brown bears, and the polar bears.
Okay.
So those are definitely my favorite.
Do they love their habitat that they can swim around in?
They do. They do. They actually, they like that it has different areas. One has like a tundra area, and one has an icy area, and then it has
wow,
the,
that's amazing.
has the water. So
this is completely unrelated, but I just finished a polar bear costume for a little girl. I don't know of anybody who wanted to be a polar bear for Halloween, but she did. So we might sneak that in to the show. It's adorable. Wow, this is amazing. So where do you see this going? I mean, you're doing it now. More and more people are finding out that you do
more
this.
and more. It's been really exciting. And, people always say to me, well, why would I need an animal communicator? And there's really lots of reasons. One is if there's something that you're having issues with your pet, maybe it's having a behavioral issue, that you're just not really sure why. People ask me all the time, why does my cat do this, or why does my dog do this? And a lot of times there really is a very good reason. They have a very logical reason for why they're doing it.
Okay.
The other is if there's something information you need to get from your pet, or information you need to give to your pet. So for instance, if your pet is sick and you want to take it to the vet, then it's usually good to get some additional information that you can give to the vet. And it's not in place of going to the vet, but it's just additional information that you can give to your vet that might help.
Like you tell the pediatrician, your child communicates to you, or like I know my daughter, when she doesn't feel good, it's like someone popped her balloon.
Right.
And I also know when she's faking, because she dances around the house and tells me she's sick. No, I don't think so. So you have that ability to help in their care and treatment because you have that extra, or the owner, the family has the extra edge. That is just amazing.
I can ask them, what are you feeling? And they can say, my stomach hurts, or I'm feeling itchy, or I'm dizzy, or whatever it might be, and you can give that additional information to the vet. As well, a big thing that's really helpful is if your pet is older or sick, and you're just not sure when the right time is to help guide them into transition. And that's a horrible decision for any pet owner to have to make.
It certainly is. And
it's so much easier on them if the pet makes the decision and not me, because I've had to do it. And in the past, before I became a communicator, I wondered, did I wait too long? Did I go too soon? Is there something else I could have done? Are they mad at me for doing this? And now it's very helpful. We can ask them, are you ready? And a lot of times they will say, yes, they're ready. Or sometimes they'll say, no, ask me again in a month or so. I still have things I have to do. So it's really fascinating. And those are just some things that are really helpful that people would need an animal communicator for.
Now, there's a lot of people, including me, who lost an animal to old age, whatever. That was the hardest thing I've ever done, is have to take
make that decision to have them euthanized?
Yeah. And the girl, after it was over, said, don't drive. I said, don't worry, I won't. And I thought, I'll never do this again. I'll never have a pet. It's too hard to do this.
Yeah, I completely understand. And I don't want to say that it makes it okay to have me talk to them first, but it certainly does ease that burden of that question,
Right.
did I wait too long or did I go too soon? Because what pets ultimately do is you make the decision in your mind, yes, it's time, I can't drag this out there in pain, and you make the decision, okay, tomorrow we're going to go to the vet. And then the next day the pet's running around and seems perfectly fine. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm glad I didn't do it. Oh, everything's fine. And so you call the vet and you cancel. And then the day after, the pet's back in pain again. And they can do that to you where they fool you and they pull back and forth, they rally. And a lot of times I think the reason is, or what I've been told by some of them, is that they finally feel that burden lifted because they understand that you've made that decision. They feel a little bit better, and they're ready to go because they look at death much differently than we do.
Tell me how they look at it.
To them, it's just the next step. It's not a sad thing. It's just as if they're saying, okay, it's break time. It's just no big deal. It's the next thing. And usually they're very good about knowing what their purpose is here on Earth while they're here, and they know when they've achieved that purpose and they can be ready to go.
Wow.
And so they usually will, sometimes they'll rally just because they're relieved or they're ready to go or they're ready for the next step. Or sometimes it's just as our organs shut down, sometimes we actually, that pain goes away for the moment, and then, progressively it gets worse. So it just makes it, takes that burden off of a lot of people if I can ask the pet, are you ready? Is it time? Are you okay with this?
Yes.
And also it helps if you've already made that decision and your pet has transitioned. Some people would like to check in with them and make sure, are they okay with it? Is the pet okay with it?
Yeah. Wow. I have like a million things going on in my brain right now. We know that whales can communicate. So when you decide to go and communicate with the whales, can you come back?
Oh,
and
yes.
Tell us how that happens. And the dolphins.
Absolutely.
Because they have so many. We are land creatures. They are ocean creatures. There's so much that we don't know.
Absolutely. They have a big purpose, and that is to heal the earth. And not only is that the earth, the physical earth, but also mankind as well. They're trying to really sort of push us back in the right direction and get us back on the path of loving and integration and loving one another and getting along. And a lot of times, in fact, there's a whole movie about whales that got stuck inland and couldn't get out.
Yes.
And at one point they could get out, but they wouldn't leave. And the reason is because they wanted us to work together and have the Russians come with their ice cutting boats and have us work with them and have it be a collaborative thing. And once we did collaborate, then
that was just
left.
a recent movie, wasn't it? Wow. They are communicating with us. Somehow they're telling us this.
Yep. So they are trying to help us get back on the right path.
Well, I'm seeing this. You're going to talk to the whales and start something huge.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. This was
Oh,
amazing.
thank you.
I learned way more than I even knew. I want to do another one. We'll do part 2.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.